for this demo Rockerbox overview webinar. Most of the webinar today will be kind of an AMA with Eddie, who's my co-host here. But we have a little bit of an overview of Rockerbox at the beginning to just give everyone a bit of a introduction to Rockerbox before we jump into the questions. We have our own kind of AMA questions gathered from a lot of the frequently asked questions that people have about Rockerbox. But if you have your own questions, please feel free to drop those into the chat. You'll see it on, I think, the right side of your screen if you're seeing the same thing as me. And we'll answer those at the end of the webinar. And I am mostly going to be off stage for this. I'm, by way of introductions, I'm the product marketing manager at Rockerbox. But my co-host, Eddie, is going to be running most of the webinar. So I'm going to just jump off in a second here and turn it over to him. So if you want to introduce yourself, Eddie, and then just jump on in, I will hop off stage.
Hey everyone, nice to meet everyone, and excited to go through a little bit more about Rockerbox today. So yeah, I'm a product manager here at Rockerbox. So as you can imagine, fulfilling the product duties of collecting feedback and developing roadmap and presenting it to our customers, and of course working internally with our engineering teams to get the features prioritized and all that. But yeah, today we're going to be taking you through some of the criteria that we think is important for kind of evaluating marketing providers and getting a bit of insight into how Rockerbox does things. So we'll be going through, as Maggie mentioned, just a handful of slides that covers some of the data foundations that we built off of, and then also the analysis that's then layered on top. So yeah, as Maggie mentioned, if you guys have any questions, feel free to share in the chat and we'll do our best to get to those. And yeah, other than that, we'll be just going ahead and getting us through the slides. If you guys have any challenges viewing the presentation, definitely let us know. Just give me a shout in the chat. All right, so with that, I'll just go ahead and get started. Right off the bat, what is Rockerbox? We think of ourselves as a platform that helps marketers, and we help marketers understand what happened historically, and then use that information to then make decisions about what to do with that information in the future. And there's really two fundamental parts of what makes Rockerbox work. First of all, it's making sure that we have a clean, centralized set of data. A lot of this is marketing data that we are going to be collecting on your behalf. And then we need to make sure we have it organized and categorized correctly as well. And once we've established this really strong data foundation, only then can you really build analysis and generate insights off of this data. So that's where we layer on different types of marketing measurement, whether it's MTA attribution or MMM, marketing mix modeling. These analyses are all built after the fact, contingent on you having collected a strong data foundation in the first place. So we're going to go through a little bit of what that actually means. So first of all, from a data foundation perspective, this is something that Rockerbox really dedicates a ton of time into around collecting all of this information. So the information that we're looking to collect includes anything from marketing activity. So if you're running on different online and offline channels, whether it's through search, social, or OTT, linear TV, direct mail, all these different channels, we need to make sure we're collecting all the activity that's powering that. Of course, we're also looking at incorporating all of your spend for your different marketing platforms as well. So, how much are you spending on Google, Facebook, Bing, your direct mail providers like Pebble Post? And then on top of that, we're collecting the entire journey of your users from beginning to end. Right? So their first engagement with your website, all the way to the next view product, add to cart, purchase. If you're a subscription-based business, we're also capturing subscription models as well. So that entire journey from beginning to end is an important part of the Rockerbox data collection process. So once we have a combination of this, aggregate level data from your marketing platforms to your user level data from your on-site activity, activity on your mobile app if you have one in your retail business. We're then building these extremely detailed paths of conversion to report on each step along the way. So when we're looking at this, we think about this from the perspective that, we know your users are engaging you from a top of funnel brand perspective. They're visiting your website, they're getting exposed to branded TV spots, all the way down to getting retargeted by, your campaigns that you're running on social networks, or through your affiliates. And each journey, each step along that journey is something that Rockerbox is collecting and constructing at a really defined path to conversion, which we then roll up into much larger analyses on top of that. And then finally, from a data collection perspective, we're not selfish with our data. We want to make sure that we can share as much as we can with you. This is obviously the advertiser's data. This is your data. So we have a ton of tools that are available to analyze and inspect this information. Part of this is available within our UI, of course. We have different types of metrics and analytics that sit within our platform. But we also expose all of this in our export capabilities, which provides this data into what we call our data warehousing integration. So we have data warehousing exports, which provide both high level as well as really detailed log level reports that give you the details, give you the insight into all the same information that Rockerbox has access to, which allows you to do, marry this with your own user data to really incorporate this into your daily operations with like different executive dashboards and so on. So yeah, the core part of Rockerbox, the start of it is this strong data foundation, which is critical for everything else we do on top of that. So the next piece is the analysis. From the analysis perspective, we have 3 different product lines that we talk about. First of all, we have the marketing mix modeling tool, which we think of as primarily suited towards high-level planning and budgeting. Right, so is really well suited for understanding how all the different channels you're running are impacting your core KPI, whether that's revenue or subscription signups, and really giving you that insight into where are you on the curve of efficiency. Could you be spending a little bit more without without impacting your CPA or your ROAS, or are you kind of at the optimal part? And that's really where is trying to answer questions, is like, how are you doing on the budgeting side? We're also trying to answer questions like, if you do have a set budget, like let's say you have $100,000 to spend for this month, how should that be allocated across your different channels? So really is suited for really this high level planning across your different channels. Our optimized platform is really geared towards understanding each individual step within that path to conversion. So on the previous slide, I talked about how we construct these detailed paths where every single touch point that occurred from the first touch of branded TV awareness to your middle funnel to bottom funnel touch points from all of your different marketing channels. Understanding the weight of each of those touch points is critical to really determining like where you should be putting budget within these in-flight campaigns. And that's what our optimized product line is really suited for. And then finally for journey, this is really towards understanding your pathing. So what types of channels are better suited for upper funnel events? What types of channels are more suited for bottom funnel? And then also, what are the interactions between these different types of marketing? So are you running, are you finding that if you run certain upper funnel marketing, that there's bottom funnel marketing channels that you want to layer on top to really maximize effectiveness? The journey product is really well suited to help answer that question. So right now we covered data foundations. We've covered just a high level of some of the marketing analysis that you can then layer on top of that data. The next thing we'll just give a little bit more of a peek into is really a little bit more under the hood type details of what's going on within Rockerbox. So this slide itself, I acknowledge, can be a lot to process, but really what we want to show here is just the thought and detail that goes into how Rockerbox collects all this information, just so you have a high level understanding of it. I don't expect anyone to really just look at this and be like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. But just to give you a bit of insight, what we're trying to demonstrate here is on the left-hand side, you have all the different tracking methods and channels that Rockerbox is using. And the key takeaway here is that every channel needs to have some dedicated treatment in order to, collect the data appropriately within Rockerbox. So if you're running search channels, like that's a pretty straightforward collection of, landing page URLs. But if you're doing something like OTT, for example, then you might need to engage in a more detailed log level integration, which Rockerbox helps you on. And I'll talk a little bit more about those integrations later on as well. So left-hand side covers all the different channels that Rockerbox tracks, and then also gives you a brief overview about how we actually do so. If you look across the top, you'll see really your conversion funnel activity. And this is where Rockerbox's expertise towards tracking users on their entire conversion funnel from their first exposure to the brand down to the final purchase. That's all information that's critical to Rockerbox, and we're capturing this through on-site pixels, through webhooks, and through batch files as well. Towards the bottom, you'll see where we talk about spend and platform performance. This covers aggregate data that Rockerbox collects through API connections we have with Google, Facebook, TikTok, Snap, with batch files, which are files that are delivered to Rockerbox, as well as an option to manually input this data within our system as well. This gives us high-level spend numbers, spend against campaigns, spend against creatives, but it also gives us performance metrics for each of these platforms so that you can compare how Rockerbox analyzes each of these channels, these campaigns, against how in-platforms are reporting on them as well. And then finally, on the right-hand side, this covers the different access points that users have to the data and the analysis that Rockerbox provides. So we already spoke a little bit about the export capabilities, where Rockerbox will make this data available within your warehousing tools like Snowflake, Redshift, or BigQuery. And then on top of that, we obviously have a platform. You can analyze this data. We can export this data via email, Google Sheets. So our goal is to make sure that we can make all this data available to you and all the analysis available to you at your fingertips wherever you want to work. If you prefer working in a third-party platform like Rockerbox, we'll give you those analytics. If you have a lot of internal tools and dashboards that marry your own customer data, then we also make that available through our warehousing product as well. So just to summarize, the Rockerbox data foundation is really critical to what we do. Our expertise and history of working with different providers, working with different types of customers, and the types of access they have gives us the flexibility to really take in a lot of different data sets that you have available, as well as what your platforms have available. And then on top of that, we layer on all this analysis on top of that so that you can actually make decisions around what you're trying to do with your marketing based on your historical data. Cool. So with that, I think that covers a lot of our prepared slides. I'm going to go through some commonly asked questions we get around these topics. So I'm just going to go through and let's take a look at some of the first question. Okay, so right off the bat, what should we provide? What should we pick when it comes to a marketing analytics provider? Should we look at something more MTA? Should we look at something for MMM? So our perspective on this is that you're going to need the right tool for the questions you're trying to answer. And just to give you a little bit of insight here, we think of MMM as really geared towards providing an understanding of long-term impact and macro level insights. How are you doing against your different channels at a very high level, right? MMM is not going to give you the information at a creative level, even down to the campaign level is often too granular, but it will tell you how you're performing across your different channels and maybe your strategies of prospecting versus retargeting, branded versus non-brand. It'll also give you insight that MTA can't provide into things like seasonality and external factors like economic conditions, competitor activities, industry trends. These are things that MTA just isn't really going to incorporate in its modeling. There's some advantages MMM has also for really being able to understand the impact of upper funnel channels and what is, so to speak, hard to track. There's really no, MMM's kind of agnostic to these technical hurdles that you might see from a user level tracking method like MTA. So really, MMM is going to give you a much better sense of how to plan and budget across your different channels at the high level. Now, on the other hand, MTA is going to give you a ton of granular insights. So if what you're looking for is understanding how individual customer touch points along their journey, how they're actually interacting with each other, MTA is going to be better suited for helping businesses understand the impact of every touch point on a conversion down to the campaign strategy and creative levels. So one of the advantages with MTA is that granularity where you do get the information down to the most granular information available for each platform. Right, so you're not stuck operating at the channel level for budgeting. You can actually get down to, oh, I ran this creative on this date, and I can understand the impact over the next 30 days. Another advantage of MTA is around real-time decision making. MMM tends to be something that you're going to be refreshing on a monthly, quarterly, or even yearly basis. So the frequency of the updates are going to be much less common. Whereas on the NTA side, this is something that's basically updating on a daily basis. So as you're getting updates from data collection on the website, on your your mobile app, MTA is actually able to be responsive on the daily grade. So if you're looking for something that's more geared towards in-flight decision making, in-flight optimization, MTA is going to give you a lot more data there as well. So if your use cases are more around in-flight campaign adjustments, creative level decisions, and understanding how channels interact with one another, then MTA might be a better option for you as well. Now, one of the advantages with Rockerbox is you don't need to really make a either or decision. We have both a MTA and an MMM platform. So the way that customers typically operate is that they're looking at MMM for those high level planning and budgeting insights, really. So what should my budget plan be for the next 3 months? And then while those campaigns are actually in flight, they'll use MTA to make decisions on a creative level, right? So which creatives tend to be performing better or worse? Are they above or below my expectations for a given ROAS or CPA for that channel? If so, I'm going to make the corresponding adjustments. All right, so let's take a look at the next question. All right, so why is first-party data important for a marketing analytics platform? So first-party data, just to define that a little bit, from the Rockerbox perspective, first-party data is our customers' data. This is data that is something that a customer has on their website. It has first-party data about their users, their customers, their interactions on a website, what they do in the mobile app, in retail stores, and things like that. So from the Rockerbox perspective, first-party data is extremely important, particularly for the MTA perspective, because it's the most accurate and reliable source of information about how your customers interact with your brand. So if you can understand how your customers interact, how they behave as they go through your funnel, that'll then give us the ability to make better analysis, which you can then use to make better decisions about what channels and messaging you need in order to engage your customers. So that's where it's super important from the MTA perspective. In order to construct this really granular user level pathing, we will need first party data in order to construct that. Now, from an MMM perspective, we also believe that first party data is really important because it's going to be much more accurate and up to date. So we've worked with different customers that would like for us to really gather the data for them through third-party data providers and things like that. But MMM is extremely sensitive to having accurate information. So if your third-party provider doesn't have your exact spend, doesn't have your exact revenue, then your model is also going to be, limited by what other parties are able to collect for you. Kind of the age-old mantra of garbage in, garbage out. We want to make sure we have extremely accurate and relevant information for you in order to build, whether it's an MTA model or an MMM model. So both are critical. Our first-party data is critical in both cases. Okay, next question. How easy is it for me to add new channels as my strategy changes? So Rockerbox's perspective on new channels is that we want to be, a core part of your marketing platform. And one of the key tenets is around that data collection, data foundation. So we built our integration such that these are simple point and click opportunities for you to really just click a button, authenticate, and then we're able to pull in all your marketing spend. Or in cases where you have platforms that don't support API integrations, then we have inboxes that can process data feeds from these platforms where we've established this library. We understand what the reports look like. You can deliver a standardized report and everything will be processed automatically. So over time, we've built hundreds of these types of integrations to help streamline how you bring on new channels. Everything from tracking its effectiveness to spend ingestion to promos that you're using to survey data that you're collecting through different providers like Faring, for example. So you have a library of these existing integrations. There are hundreds available for you. If you happen to be working with a provider that is not one that we worked with in the past, we do have a team dedicated towards building up this library such that you can bring on these new channels more easily. That's a relatively straightforward process where we need to understand their capabilities, how they track, how they report, and then we'll work with those providers directly to keep you guys out of it. And that'll allow us to then add net new integrations to our portfolio. And we're doing about dozens of new integrations each quarter. So this is a process that as we work with new customers and they bring on their own partners, then we continue building our library of integrations. Okay, next question. Does your platform connect to my data warehouse? So yeah, certainly one of the main interaction points that many of our customers have with Rockerbox is through their warehouse. So while we have marketers every day in our platform, one thing we get asked about a lot is that a marketer may have specific data sets or use cases that they want to explore that sit within their warehouse itself. So warehouses like Snowflake, Redshift, and BigQuery, we have a direct connection with. And what this connection allows us to do is actually to sync Rockerbox data, all the data we have from both an aggregate, like all your spend data, as well as your reported MTA information. All of that can be synced in a shared table with your external warehouse. And your warehouse, you can then build queries, you can build analytics, you can build dashboards based off this combination of Rockerbox shared data, as well as any existing data you have. So whether you have your own, customer lifetime value, you have your own granular reporting, all that can be included and pulled from the Rockerbox data directly. So yeah, we always find really interesting use cases from our customers about how they're exploring Rockerbox data on top of their existing user data, and we always find that really fascinating. So we definitely encourage customers to look at exploring data warehousing. I think that's a really great way for you to get the most out of Rockerbox. And then finally, another question we have here is around onboarding. So how long does a typical onboarding take and how quickly can we glean insights? So yeah, time to value is a really important metric for our onboarding team. So we do have teams dedicated to ensuring our customers maximize value in as short a time as possible. So whether you're talking about MTA platform, MMM platform, our goal is to keep this onboarding time well within 30 days. Oftentimes onboarding is going to start even before our sales close. Making sure we have alignment with the customers on what they need. We'll work on generate statements of work just to make sure everyone's aligned on their expectations versus what needs to be provided to Rockerbox. We have a team of customer success managers and implementation specialists to review customer needs and work with them on the integrations, which covers everything from tracking your website activity as well as mobile app offline activities. Working with you to connect all your different partners, as we talked about earlier with all the different integrations, we want to make sure we're connecting and generating all the information necessary to report on your entire funnel. We work with you on making sure you have the right analyses at your tool set, right? So how are you going to construct the analyses to answer the questions that are most important to you? And then finally, making sure that the access points make sense for the customers too. So making sure that you have walkthrough of the platform. If you're exporting data to warehousing, then how do you get access to it? What does all the data mean? How do you best marry it to your own data as well? So all this is something that our onboarding team are experts in. So yeah, they try and make this within, in the order of weeks. And just so that you can actually get as much value as you can from Rockerbox as quickly as possible. All right, I think that takes us through the end of the questions. I'm just checking to see if there's any other questions that have popped up since then. I think we're good. Maggie, do you have anything else?
Getting that on stage stuff. Yeah, I don't have anything else. We did answer a lot of questions, so I think that's understandable if we don't have any actual audience questions today. And as always, if there is anything you wanted to listen to again, we'll be sending out the recording of this webinar, so you'll get that in the next few days. And I think that's pretty much it. So thanks everyone to attending. Eddie, thank you for hosting. This was great, very informative, and I hope everyone has a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.